Hello everybody, Richard Owen here at Owen Automotive, and today we're going to put the junkie type motor into a car, specifically this 1967 Series 1 I just acquired. Here's where it goes in the subframes. These are lightweight alloy subframes. And what I'm going to need to do is get this plate out. You can't put an engine in or out with this plate in there. It's a crossmember called the reaction plate. It ties into the torsion bars running along here that go to the bottom control arm. And to release the tension on it, you're going to have to remove the 3 links up here that hold the torsion bar, and then that releases the tension and we'll take that bar out. I'll show you what that's like, and then we'll get this engine into the bay. Alright, first link to take off is the tie rod. It's already loose, so that's pretty easy. Out it comes. I've already loosened the sway bar bolt back here. So the upper control arm ball joints, I'm going to use this puller, and it's actually more a pusher actually. It's going to push the taper right out of the control arm. Oh, no. Okay, let's crank on this tool and see what happens. Oh, it's getting tight. I hate this.
You must have a socket for crushing on there, I think you were a socket outside.
Probably. There it goes. Whew.
Too easy, isn't it? Too easy.
All right, the last thing holding the suspension together is the shock. It's going to come out. Just going to jack it up a bit, give it some support. Didn't really move. Dad's going to stand on it here. Watch out, it's just on the jack. There we go, thank you. A little bit of weight helped. Awesome. Time for some speckled hen, eh? Graham says it's good.
It is good. It is good.
Okay, the suspension's fully down. Look at that. That's great, because what that means is that there's no tension on this torsion bar whatsoever. And I can get to these reaction plate bolts, take them out with no drama. And that's pretty much the safest way to go, I think. Yeah, I was getting a little bit ahead of myself before putting the engine in. Have to deal with the firewall a little bit. One of the things I needed to do was make this clutch line. It's way easier to mock up and install before the engine goes in. Another thing is the stabilizer bushing here. Better to have that in. And the third thing I did was just clean out and address these coolant tubes that run into the firewall. I ran some fuel tank sealant through them, and hopefully that'll preserve them, because I don't feel like getting in there and changing them just quite yet. Yeah, so that's it. We're ready to go. Let's bring the junkie type engine over. All right, just sat the car down on the motor somewhat. Now I'm going to pick it up with the hoist. This is a really easy way to install an E-type engine. When it's on the hoist, it'll let us wiggle it around and get it right through these frames, and it'll pop up quite a lot. It'll stick way out of these frames. Okay, with the engine nice and high, I'm going to be able to put in the motor mounts now. They go in down there. So we'll do that next. All right, here we are. This is the transmission and the mount. It kind of has 5 points on the body, and it's actually sprung, so there's a spring holding the back of the transmission up. I'm just going to let it down, and hopefully that pin will poke on through. Let's see what happens. Okay, that pin just drew down into that bushing, and it's looking at about the right height, so I'm really happy. This engine's installed. Woohoo! All right, my dad noticed the engine's leaning to the passenger side a bit, just the way it's sat. So just got a jack under here. I'm gonna straighten it out. There it goes. That's a lot better. Yeah, one thing I always forget before the reaction plate crossmember goes in is just this little flywheel cover. It's much easier to put in right now. Okay, just gonna tap in the reaction plate. I'm gonna do it without messing with the torsion bars whatsoever. Just remove the lowest bell housing bolts, and I think I can just tap this reaction plate in place. There she is up in there, right on. Yeah, one of the biggest bolts on an E-type is this 1/2" 20 National Fine. If it pull a focus there, that's gonna run through the reaction plate into the subframe here. It gives the car a lot of strength. One thing I wanna do is make sure I don't screw up the threads as I draw this in. So I just put a punch in here, all the way through, and I kind of bang it in there, get it centered. Then once it's nice and centered, it goes in with no drama whatsoever, not marring any threads. That's the way I like to do things. All right, the reaction plate crossmember is fully installed. You just see these two nuts up in there and the bolts that run through the bracket of the torsion bar here. They're kind of difficult to get to and extremely difficult to deal with if you have the torsion bars with any kind of torque on them. So relieving the tension of the suspension is really the way to go here. You see this huge bolt here, it goes through the cross member. That's the one I showed you guys earlier. Just a side note, here's the slave cylinder. Really difficult to deal with. It's really tight in there, especially that hard line hiding up and in there. It looks like there might be some space on camera, but it's really tight in there. Just go to the driver's side here. You can see this is the standard fit for the ground strap, which of course is totally necessary. So yeah, that's what it looks like all done. Super happy about that. Just gonna button up the suspension now, and the engine will be fully installed. All right, look at that. The junk E-type motor has a new home. Isn't this sweet? Just loving it. It's definitely the best part about this car, the original engine there. Fully repainted, looking concourse, really digging it. If you haven't watched it, I did a whole series on this engine, 11 parts, taking it apart. It was completely seized and rebuilding it back up from the dead. And yeah, really, and actually, if you look at the last episode, you'll see we ran this thing with no exhaust and it sounded just bloody brilliant. So yeah, just digging this. It's the best part of the car. Really not worrying about a lot of the fit and finish elsewhere. It's kind of grungy, but it's good enough for me. Yeah, I'm just gonna spend some time refinishing the heater box. I got a new core to put in, so I thought, why not? Let's redo it. And underneath this tag here, which I accidentally cracked, but that's okay. You can see it definitely had nice glossy paint. So I'm gonna refinish this, make it look nice. It's such a prominent part of the engine bay. All right, kind of surprised, got the heater box out. Got some kind of custom motor on here on a big piece of plywood. Yikes. Wonder what's lurking underneath there. Yeah, just got it loose. Oh, looking pretty good actually. Because I think that's the original blade on there. I think this is the original aperture, so I can buy a new assembly and put it in here. Sweet. Just getting ready to put the door glass in, but I got an opportunity to treat the inside of the door, putting cavity protection spray on the inside here, this channel you can't get to, don't want it rusting out. And then stop moisture from coming in. There's a few emblems here, Jaguar 4.2, and they're held in with these little retainers. Here's the part number. They're called mouse condoms. These ones have all split, so what happens on a rainy day, these slowly drip and rust out the door. So I'm gonna seal those up, maybe use some of these new retainers, put the upholstery on, glue it around the lip, then I'll show you what the window looks like going in. All right, glass is going in the door. Got an original triplex piece here. You see the original marking. My friend Jason at Jetstream gave me some big tips. Premium glass cleaner to use as lubricant, pry tools, and his biggest tip was actually to start with a bit of tape, and it holds out the seal, and that'll get it started. So yeah, let's get this glass in. Okay. All right, windows in, loving that, looking good, didn't crack it. Got the seal here, it takes a lock strip. One thing I do is put a little bit of silicone sealant in here with a fabric wrapped around, just make sure you get a nice tight, watertight seal. My friend Jason at Jetstream lent me the tool to use. He says this blue one here, Panther Pro, is the way to go. It'll just loop through the lock strip and it go in, and he says do it in one fell swoop. And then anything that kind of didn't seat properly, just go back and fix it with this. So yeah, let's give this a go. Let's see how it goes. On that weld there, hey? Yeah. Looking pretty good. Making some worms there, Dad. All right, having a lot of success here. Last step are these chrome finisher pieces. It's a thin trim. You can see it's quite thin, and what I did is just scuffed it up with some sandpaper, and I'm gonna put it down with some adhesive because at speed, these things are known to fly out. So what I'm gonna use is some urethane. It's called weather strip adhesive from Worth. It's, if we could pull a focus here, come on, there it is. And this is really, really nice stuff. It sets up pretty quickly, so gotta work fast. So I'm gonna have on my side is some tape, pry tools, and a bit of this, and we'll see how it goes. Clamp it in this corner. All right, got that bottom piece in. I forgot what these things are like. What ends up happening is in the corner here, it really doesn't want to seat in. So what the plan is here is to just let it dry, and then maybe if I can figure out a way to tuck it down afterward and get it snugly in there, maybe. But what's going on is that the window seal just is too pliable, and it just does not hold the chrome. Okay, it's the next day here. You can see I got kind of desperate using these clamps to really hold the chrome down. I couldn't figure out any better way. And let's see what happens when I let these things go. I wouldn't be surprised if they pop out, but there's a glimmer of hope. Let's see what happens. Oh, that one held. Look at that. Well, that's good. All right, yeah, what a struggle this chrome work has been. Holy, yeah, yesterday was really fighting it. And today you can kind of look at it with a clear head. The area here where the chrome is bent, I'm not surprised that I wasn't able to seat it that well. I might try it again with some epoxy, just use the same method and seat that thing down. But I'm really curious to see what everybody thinks. Is there a method I'm missing? Is there a special tool? I kind of had a brain fart idea of actually cutting it into 4 pieces so the corners might seat a little better. But yeah, I'd love to hear if you have any tips, tricks, or suggestions seating this chrome, because I've done a few of these now and they're never quite perfect, and it would be nice to get the system down. All right, back on the gas tank here. If you remember from a previous episode, this was a rusty piece of mess. Took it out of the car, had it blasted, and used this POR fuel tank sealant. It's been sitting around for about 2 weeks. Let's see the result. Okay, let's have a look. Wow, look at that. Really got all over the place. Look at it down in there. Wow, this stuff's great. Look at that. Perfect. And it's super, super hard. Like really tough to deal with. See even where it's built up there. Awesome. Okay, well, we're ready to go. I'm going to paint this thing black and get it back in the shop. Yeah, really digging the wet paint on this gas tank. Kind of overdoing it. Nobody will really ever see this. But if you're doing it, why not do it right? Ready to put that fuel tank back in. Here's the cavity. Kind of just painted it with some enamel spray bomb real quick and put some seam sealer in where we had rust previously. I just have to make sure I get a couple things right before the tank goes in. One is clean out the threads here that lock it down. That'll really aid in getting those big bolts in. Another thing I gotta do is make sure this drain tube is in there and it has enough room for the tank to fit in. Make sure that's in. And I also have the tank vent tube ready to go, so that's good. One thing I did while I was in here, while everything was out, was I put cavity protection spray in a lot of the areas of the inner body. I have this gun here that I use, and it has a 360-degree spray nozzle that lets me put cavity protection spray in some critical areas. It's hard pulling a focus there. One area where I did it were these strengthening ribs. That's really nice to get cavity protection spray in there. All in the back side here and up through the fender wells. Did all the inside in there at the same time. Made sure my wiring's good, so for the sender and all the lights, made sure that's working. Last thing, just got these original pads back in here. Why not? Kind of cool to look original. I enjoy that. So yeah, let's get this tank in. I'll show everybody what that looks like. Yeah, I just want to show everybody how this thing's fastened in before I get it in there, because you won't be able to see it. Basically, there's these huge holes in the fuel tank that accept these big rubber grommets. And I like to use the originals, believe it or not, because they're softer than the reproduction ones you buy new. And there's a steel sleeve in there. So usually I like to put this on the tank before it goes in the car. So it'll slide in like that. Then once it's in, using the original bolt here is really nice. It has a nice chamfer there to find those threads. And really get this back corner in first. And try not to lose the bolt, because if it falls back down, the tank has to go back out. So yeah, bit of a fight for this corner to get it in, but if you do everything right and have a bit of patience, no problem. Okay, let's fit this tank. Okay, got the vent tube hooked up. One thing I forgot to mention is the main spout hose here. You can see the original part number. I have a new one tucked up underneath there with the hose clamps. And the original one is about 3 1/4 inches long. And I like to trim about that length. That way you can get it in and then just pull that hose down and draw it over that main intake. Okay, I got clearance for the vent tube now. There we are. Look at that, this thing's in. Pretty much drama free. Just one little scratch right here, right there, you can see it. But other than that, went in really awesome. Really happy about that. I used this wrench, made it really easy. This way I'm not losing sockets down in the hole there and having to take the whole tank back out. So yeah, put that one in, put this one in over here. And last but not least, let's see what we got brewing in here. Yeah, see there's the main downspout. I got 2 clamps there. Just got to pull them down now, tighten that up, and she will be in. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot is the donut this thing sits on, so I'm just going to shove it through from below before I tighten it down. Look at that fuel tank. Really digging this. Shining right back at me. I love that. Yeah, that's a far cry from what this tank looked like when it came out. It was all rusty inside, and we've since sealed it and painted it, and it looks better than new. So yeah, certain pride of ownership with this kind of thing, and I'm really digging it. Look at the fuel sender here, the original wiring harness reaching out to it. My dad tested the resistance on all the functions, and it works, so goes back in. No need to replace that. Here's the drain tube and the cap. Original fasteners, you better believe it. Those original copper washers, that's my style. And hooked it up to a fuel filter here, a Chinese fuel filter. Don't want any shit going into the carburetors, that's for sure. That connects over to an old Echo fuel pump, a short little one. These things go on and on and on. They'll go for 20, 30 years. So I don't mind keeping that in the car once I make sure there's no leaks. So yeah, that does it for this episode. Thanks for watching, everybody. As usual, if you have any tips, tricks, comments, or trade secrets, I love to hear from you. Please put them in the comments below. Yeah, I'm getting pretty enthusiastic about this project. You look at the car from the rear, it's looking really complete. Loving the skinny Pirellis I've fitted on it. And yeah, this really just has all the right look. I love the way the hatch pops up properly and a whole bunch of other just little detail things, all the hardware being correct. Really is getting me going. I'm really digging this project and I'm glad you guys are along with me. Next week, gonna work on the front of the car, get the junk E-type motor running, and we won't be too far from a working car. Gotta do the brake system, get that hood fitted, get a little bit more interior in, and then we'll be cruising. So yeah, awesome. Really looking forward to that. Well, that does it for this episode. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.